it's a good time. Big crowd. Everyone's listening now. It's a good time to talk about Martha's Vineyard. I have legal questions. First, I'm going to mock everybody involved. I may or may not play a few Twitter videos to illustrate the flagrant NIMBY hypocrisy. I'm calling it hashtag NIMBY hypocrisy, not in my backyard hypocrisy. DeSantis, who apparently had the foresight of specifically having $12 million of the state budget allocated for reallocating migrants. I'll use the politically neutral term.
That's Rumble. Illegal immigrant. Well, we can use the legal term. The legal term is illegal alien. That's the legal term. People might dislike the word alien. That has a very specific legal meaning. It means alien from that nation as a non-citizen without a legal right to access to that country. So that's when people get up in arms about illegal alien. I'm like, that's literally the statutory term. That's if I'm in court. That's the term I have to use to define who this person is and how we've always defined them. So a lot of illegal aliens in Florida, and he flew a few up to Martha's Vineyard 50. For a little Labor Day celebration.
50. By the way, now that you mention it, it's the Phil Collins song. I'm an illegal alien in New York. 50. They get to Martha's Vineyard, which is, I think it's 17,000 people. It's a small island. I think it's 90% Democrat, 87% white. And I want to specify, not that all immigrants are non-white and not that all non-whites are immigrants, period, full stop. We're just talking about an ideologically, ethnically homogeneous society, literally its own island, wealthy beyond anybody's, normal standards, 73% home ownership, 48% mortgage-free home ownership. And I say that without judgment, just to set the context. 50 Venezuelan migrants are flown in by DeSantis, who has allocated $12 million of the state budget specifically for this purpose. So like Dave Rubin pointed out, you have Democrat, I don't know, what do they call them, district politicians in the state of Florida who approved this budget to allocate $12 million to reallocate migrants who are here in the state illegally. They bring 50 to Martha's Vineyard. It triggers a humanitarian crisis overnight. Overnight, they're saying, we don't have the infrastructure for this. We have a housing crisis here as it is. And I guess within 48 hours, they're shipped out to a military base in Cape Cod. But Robert, the setting aside the hypocrisy, because you have these very wealthy individuals saying, oh, we'd love to have you, but we just don't have the space. So go somewhere else. We're not a border town. The legal side of this, above and beyond the hypocrisy, they're talking, you got Gavin Newsom in California. I won't call it a shithole state, but other people do. Water crisis, energy crisis, crime crisis, exodus crisis. He's now getting involved in saying, oh, the Justice Department should investigate DeSantis, potentially, I don't know, for kidnapping charges or whatever. Robert, is there any, setting aside a highly politicized, totally dishonest judicial system, is there any meaningful or actually potential lawful exposure for what DeSantis did?
Well, the world's leading human trafficking political figure, Hillary Rodham Clinton, because she's, you might say, has all kinds of interesting experience in that particular space. Just look up Haiti, some of the activities related to that, some of the people directly connected to the Clinton Foundation, directly related to that, was accusing DeSantis of human trafficking. That was some of the criticisms on the left. The criticism on the right was, why aren't these people being deported out of the country? So it's what's legal for a state to do. A state does not have the legal power to deport someone outside of the nation's borders. However, under interstate travel rights, they have the complete power to basically encourage and incentivize someone to go to another state. And so and that's basically what they did. They said, hey, would you like to take a trip to Martha's Vineyard? They're like, yeah, why not? So they're illegally present there, etc. Whether or not they could be arrested and physically forcibly transported there is a different question. But to my knowledge, none of that has actually occurred.
One of the accusations, I don't know what warranties and representations DeSantis or whoever did this gave to the migrants. One of the criticism is that they were told they're going to have jobs and a place to stay. That's bordering on immoral.
That's what Martha's Vineyard says. They are a promoted sanctuary city. That they promote themselves. I mean, all the places that both the governor in Texas, the Democratic mayor, and political figures in El Paso are doing this on a regular basis. They're paying for people to be bused to New York City all the time. But is that two things. One, that they're more likely to get certain kinds of employment and social services in that location. And by the way, the Biden administration did this routinely, right?
Well, that's what we're going to get with
So the
this.
Biden administration took people and dumped people in state. Obama did the same thing and dumped them in states that were hostile to him so that nobody there could complain because they were already adverse to him anyway. Now, the federal government has detention power. So, where it detains and releases, that's probably up to them. There's no evidence that I've seen that any of these people were arrested and forcibly transported anywhere. Now, it's still an open question when someone is illegally present, whether or not a governor can enforce federal law in those circumstances. There's a range of issues surrounding it as to what exactly the legal scope is. But to my knowledge, they avoided all that. They said, would you like a free trip to New York? Would you like a free trip to Chicago? Would you like a free trip to Martha's Vineyard? And these are all places that they could reasonably say, this is what these places have said. These places have said they're sanctuary cities. These places said that they welcome illegal immigrants, that illegal immigrants should have a right of access here, and that they should be provided shelter and jobs. That's what these cities say. Now, it turns out they're lying. The District of Columbia is lying. The mayor's like, we can't afford anybody coming here. We're not a border town. What I underestimated when they did this for political optics purposes primarily, because it's only a tiny percentage of the number of people that have come across. One recent study said there's been a $20 billion adverse impact on just the illegals that have come here since Biden has been in office for less than 2 years. So that gives a scale of what's taken place. 2 million plus people. This is a tiny drop in the bucket. And I was skeptical that they would react. I really did not believe that you would see this NIMBY behavior, this not in my backyard behavior, to such a degree that NBC News, they had to retract it because they got caught on it, compared illegal immigrants to trash, called them trash, quoted somebody calling them trash. So what you see is, the complaint for a long time for those of us critical of illegal immigration, one is we either have a democracy or we don't. And if we have a democracy that sets the rules as to how many people can come in and on what basis, then we have to stick with those rules or we don't have a democracy anymore. The second is, overwhelmingly, this immigration burden is being placed on working class communities in America. Most Americans are sympathetic with most people that are coming here. Most of them are hardworking, good family people who are trying to support their family. Now, amongst them are criminals, gangsters, drug dealers, rapists, bad people. And if you were a really bad person, why not? You're better off not being in a jurisdiction that may be trying to track you or trace you at the time, but instead find a place that wants to offer you sanctuary in certain parts of the country. But most of them good, hardworking people, without any question. But we have limits as to the way I've always compared it. It's like my house. Somebody might be a good person and who could contribute to the value of my house, but do I have to open my house to whoever wants to be let in? No, I don't. We don't really think that way. So we have limits. We have to honor these limits, and that overwhelmingly, these limits are being discarded at the expense of working class people in America. Now, many people on the right suspect this is about a political power grab, that they're importing votes and voters to be able to maintain majority support in elected positions of power that they would not have but for importing these voters. I guarantee you that if these voters were a bunch of evangelical Christians from Africa or Latin America, the left would suddenly change their mind about who could be brought into the country on immigration standards.
Cubans, for example, would be a good one where they would all of a sudden
impose. They don't like a lot of the Cubans. They don't like some of the Venezuelans coming in. So and the Biden administration taking a pretty hostile position on Cubans coming into the country. So it shows you the complete contrast. Certain African groups that have been persecuted for religious reasons that are conservative Christians, they're not bringing them in many big numbers. And so that's part of it. But the other part of it is overwhelmingly the social, political, economic burden has fallen on working class communities in America, particularly working class Mexican American communities that have been in this country for hundreds of years. a century or more, back when Texas was part of Mexico for some of these folks. That's particularly true of parts of New Mexico. You got populations that predate the United States that lived in parts of that tie their ancestry to that. So, but overwhelmingly, it's working class people whose schools are being stressed, whose roads are being overly impacted, whose housing is being directly impacted, whose employment prospects are being directly impacted. The working class is paying the price, and disproportionately, by the way, often working class African Americans and Latinos in America. So, and the question has always been, to what degree is it just virtue signaling power grab for these liberal cities to say there'll be sanctuaries, not allow illegal immigrants to be prosecuted, to refer to themselves as the Underground Railroad, like they're abolitionists freeing the slaves? And how much of it is brazen, blatant, pure hypocrisy, where they refuse to accept any of the accountability or responsibility economically, culturally, or politically for these populations in their own neighborhood? Well, now we know. D.C. mayor has gone nuts about this. Martha's Vineyard went berserk about this. New York City mayor is going nuts about this. Chicago mayor is going nuts about this. They're all losing their mind. And it shows you what a complete scam it was all along. And I didn't think it would politically work to the degree it has, because
Robert,
it's exposed this hypocrisy on a grand scale.
I know people who are absolutely apolitical and almost non-political because politics turns them off. And privately, they say, this is the most disgusting thing I've ever seen in my life. Watching them wave at the migrants as they're, and I know some people in the chat are still taking offense. I'll call them migrants. I'm not going to go by the legal term, although I might use it more freely. Illegal aliens.
You know, I mean, I've represented people that are in that position, people seeking asylum, people, etc. So I don't use that legal term with any hostility. It's just, that's I choose to use the legally correct term because that's like undocumented. It's like it's not that they forgot their paperwork.
Well,
I mean, they are what they are, illegal aliens. I mean, you know, I might be an illegal alien someday if I'm trying to, if the Biden administration comes after me in some other country.
Well, so undocumented almost presupposes that they have the documents. They just don't have them now.
They left them at home. I mean, it's one of the dumbest definitions of all.
But hold on. This person tells me privately, this is shocking. Watching the they happen to be of a certain demographic on Martha's Vineyard, waving at the illegal aliens that they are now rounding up with the presence of the National Guard, but according to CNN, voluntarily. They're voluntarily being displaced to a military base in Cape Cod with the help
because it poses, like, if they want to go after DeSantis on the grounds that he sent them there, what's their legal grounds to expel him?
No, absolutely. When they do it, it's voluntary, even if there's an armed National Guard outnumbering them 3-1 doing it. When DeSantis does it voluntarily, it's kidnapping. But they're waving at them and they're saying, I love you. Hey, go. Don't let like my father always makes a joke, like, you know, here's your hat. Where's the rush? Go. We love you. One woman was saying, te amo, as they were putting them on buses to get them off their island. The memes that came out of it are so on point and poignant that even non-political people were shocked. But Robert, there's politics, and then there's fake news. And speaking of sanctuary cities, you can make this stuff up, and it would be funny if it were The Onion. Now you got NBC Boston. Is Massachusetts a sanctuary state? It's complicated. Now it's complicated it's a sanctuary state, but not when we don't like it. And then from the article, in 2017, Massachusetts top state court ruled that Massachusetts court officers do not have the authority to arrest someone suspected of being in the U.S. illegally if that person is not facing criminal charges. The state's high court ruled on Monday. That's a typo. That effectively gave the state sanctuary status. And they haven't passed.
Makes it. How did Martha's Vineyard get rid of these people? That's why they have to pretend that they came to Martha's Vineyard by coercion, but left Martha's Vineyard voluntarily.
No, they came by. Their consent was vitiated by lies coming in. But now, te amo, and get on the bus and enjoy your military facility. I'm sure it's going to be much nicer than Martha's Vineyard.
And I'm sure if I was an illegal alien, that first I hop a plane, nice private plane up to Martha's Vineyard. Would I consider that coerced? Or would I consider being put on a bus surrounded by National Guard and sent to a military detention center? Does that sound more like arrest and coercion?
And they're going to be detained. They're going to be.
I wonder if the ACLU is going to be signing up any class actions against Martha's Vineyard anytime soon for illegal detention. as they've done in a lot of other cases when people have tried to assert immigration law authority. Something tells me there's too many ACLU donors on Martha's Vineyard for them to take that action. But it has exposed the hypocrisy and the sham that is the left's immigration position in perfect display.
Yeah, I did. The kind moral side of me says, using people as political pawns. It's sort of Kantian, using people as a means to an end. But all of politics is using people as
well. And if I'm an illegal alien and I come here, I honestly don't. Whatever the situation is, the situation it is. In other words, it's not something that I'm political by being here. So the fact that I may become a political tool, that's kind of par for the course when I came here illegally.
I'm gonna read some of the Rumble rants afterwards, and sooner than later, I'm gonna figure out a method to actually bring them up or have them be seen on screen at the same time, but everyone can see them highlighted. All right, Robert, it's amazing. But I people should contemplate the idea. These people now are in a military base. I suspect they're being detained in the legal sense. That's my opinion, because I
we
don't
have
think they're
Fourth
free.
Amendment standard for when a person who has a reasonable belief they're under arrest, and things like military people and being sent to a military facility usually would count.
How about if they said, "I want to stay on Martha's Vineyard. I'm staying. There's a church. Someone will put me up here. I'm staying." No, you're not. It was nice seeing you. Te amo. Goodbye. I mean, just shocked.
Where were the immigration activists? Where were they? AOC. Did she show up crying at the gates of Martha's Vineyard? Were did the immigration activists, the George Soros funded groups, did they all show up to make sure they had effective advocacy? Somehow they were gone. It shows what political harlots these people are. They don't have principle. They don't really care about the illegals. They care about political power and leveraging illegals for political power. And that's it. Robert, if they cared about them as human beings, you would see a radically different reaction. And to be honest with you, I thought at least some of these people really did. And they've been exposed that they don't. They don't care at all. No, I'm not surprised Martha's Vineyard is a bunch of hypocrites, but like all of New York, D.C., and Chicago, wow. Those people should be embarrassed.
They like their nice house, but they like, being
like
open
Barack
as well.
Obama, he could put up all 50 without a problem. Put up Lincoln twice. The guy, was it 18 bedrooms, 8,000 square feet?
It's got 30 acres. I'm not saying this to be glib. It's a nice place. I go camping as vacation. Tents, 30 acres. How about makeshift tents? How about detention centers like they have on the border in the border towns? They don't want to see those there. They like the landscape.
New architecture was discovered recently in Martha's Vineyard. Obama was putting up some cages again to put up the cages on kids in property, and there's new signs of a new wall going up right around Martha's Vineyard.
Robert, but speaking of Bannon getting indicted for fundraising fraud, Colfage, and going on, they had a GoFundMe that was supposed to be for the humanitarian crisis in Martha's Vineyard. Within 48 hours, all of the people are gone. They updated their GoFundMe. And it says, the migrants left Martha's Vineyard for the Cape this morning. You are welcome to still give to support the MV Community Foundation and its ongoing work, but any donations as of 11 a.m. today will go to shoring up the organizations that provided assistance over the past few days and to building up a reserve to assist situations like this in the future, rather than directly helping this group of migrants and their situation.
That's the social welfare state and liberal organizations writ large. It's about their own empowerment and their own enrichment. And the victims are solely the excuse, the pretext for their power, the pretext to line their pockets. They couldn't give one rat's rear end about these human beings as human beings.